Hi, everybody. Welcome to Distilled Living with Thelma Zoa. I'm so excited that you tuned in today. I've got a very interesting topic today that I want to talk about, and it's around feeling stuck. And I want to ask you a question. Have you ever felt stuck? We're fourth month into the new year, and do you feel stuck? I kind of found myself feeling this way, and this morning when I woke up, I felt really demotivated and didn't want to keep trying. So I tried to reflect on where those feelings were coming from. And I took out my journal and I started writing down how I felt and what was triggering a lot of that stuff. And then it became quite clear that the belief system that was driving this was, that thought that says, what's the point? It's never going to work anyway. What's the point? It's never going to work anyway. And for me personally, that belief system had been perpetuated by a series of failed ventures and never fully realizing what I set out to accomplish. And it's that belief system that kept me feeling confined and feeling mediocre. I knew I could do more. I knew I had potential. I had big dreams, but I just couldn't do it, and I just felt stuck. And in that moment, I started thinking about my work. And at this current moment, I work for a football club, a professional football club in Australia. And I was thinking about our club and the football team. And I took this analogy and I wanted to share with you guys this morning. And here it goes. The truth is, at the start of a season for our NRL season, our National Rugby League season, there are no guarantees or assurances that the team is going to win. There's nothing like that. We don't know if we're going to win. But you don't play the game because you're guaranteed of winning. However, there is a probability that you are going to win. And with that probability in mind, our team can start to set the things in place to allow them to win. In other words, it's almost like I pictured some dominoes. It's like you start to stack the dominoes in your favor so that the chips fall in the right place. What do I mean? You do the work each day. You keep showing up. You keep doing your best. And slowly but surely, things can start to fall in place. And I started thinking about that personally. I'm like, wow. So technically, you don't let not knowing the outcome stop you from pursuing the goal. Because a lot of the times for me, I was more fixated on the outcome. How is this going to turn out? And if I wasn't sure of how it was going to turn out, or if I had maybe a negative outcome, anticipating a negative outcome, I just don't want to do it. But that's not how you face life. That's not how any team faces life. You don't have a guarantee that you're going to win the premiership at the end of the year. There's no guarantee. There's no crystal ball. No one can call it. But what you can do is increase your probability of winning by doing the right things and keep showing up and not giving up. See, like that football analogy, there will be losses along the way. Our team will encounter losses, but you just have to win more times than you lose. And that's kind of like how life is. There are going to be bad days. There are going to be bad months or even bad years, but you don't check out because of that. You have to keep going because in the end, like a good movie, it comes together in the end. You know what I mean? If you keep showing up and keep trying. It's okay to lose at times. And I think sometimes we struggle with that feeling of loss or failure. And we internalize it so much that we associate that failure as though we are failures. And instead of separating that situation to say, okay, that didn't work, it doesn't make me a failure, it just means that didn't work, and because of that, sometimes we don't want to try. But we've got to get we've got to get comfortable with the idea that sometimes it's okay to lose. But it's not okay to throw in the towel because you interpret that loss as a sign for what is to come. You know what I mean? Like, you might think, well, we lost this game, or, well, we lost this, and, this month we're not winning. Therefore, the rest of the year, we're just not going to win. That's not how you interpret it. And I'm learning to separate that and be able to say, that loss is that loss for that moment. We acknowledge it and not deny that it didn't happen, right? We take responsibility and not shift the blame, when that loss has occurred. And we learn from it so we can gain the insights that we need to move forward. And then we move on. Don't dwell on the loss. Don't build a whole monument around the losses or the failures of your life. They were just that for that moment, but it doesn't determine the rest of your life. You got to prepare for the next round, similar to our football team. After a loss, you examine it, you study it, and then you move on and prepare for the next round. Likewise, we prepare for the next week or the next month. May can look so different from April, and you just have to keep showing up. So, coming back to that train of thought or belief system that I was struggling with, which said, what's the point? Because it's never going to work anyway. That belief system, it was undermining everything I was trying to do. And I had to shift that narrative for myself. And instead of saying, what's the point? It's never going to work anyway, I started speaking to myself and saying, what's the point? And then the answer was, because there's a probability that I can win if I stay in the fight, if I keep playing. What's the point? Well, the point is there's a probability that I can win if I stay in the fight and if I keep playing. See, the surest way to guarantee failure for you is to stop showing up, stop trying, and simply quit. You're guaranteed that you'll keep repeating the same cycle, you keep having the same frustration, and your year is going to end in a mediocre way if you quit. You quit now. So today, I want to encourage you with a couple of things. I want to encourage you to take a paper, take a pen, and examine some of the thoughts or belief systems that are kind of limiting you. And just take the time to unpack those. Bring those belief systems to light and jot them down. See, you can never rise above limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are like, I always explain it this way, they're like a silent operating system that determines or that undermines you from within. And I'm going to say that again. Limiting beliefs are like a silent operating system that undermines you from within. As long as they stay intact, you're guaranteed of the same outcome you're trying to escape from. See, when you have negative or incorrect belief systems, it doesn't matter what you do. You're still going to arrive at that conclusion. You You will never outrun a negative belief system. So it's important to actually take the time to do the work to change or replace those belief systems. And you might ask, how do I do that? Well, it can encompass a number of things. For me, I went on a journey where for the first time in my life, I decided to actually take up counseling, and professional counseling. And it's been refreshing because it has helped me to unpack limiting belief systems that had been operating in my life. And I'm not going to go down into detail around how I got those belief systems. There are a lot of factors that attribute to that, whether the experiences you went through, your upbringing, your culture, your environment, all those things, they all come together to shape how we see the world and how we interpret things as well, and the conclusions we draw. But what was significant for me was being able to identify some of those belief systems. Sometimes you might not have the opportunity to go for counseling. Maybe read books that challenge the way that you think, that challenge the way that you see things. Talk to people, people with wisdom that can help you see things differently. But whatever you do, you need to start unpacking these belief systems for yourself. Another thing for me that has helped me is around my faith. See, my faith plays a very big role in my journey and in my life. I usually look at the truth and principles found in the Word of God, which is the Bible, and I use those principles and that truth to adopt an elevated way of thinking that transforms my limited belief system. I have to make a choice every time when I'm faced with the truth of, this is what the Word of God says, and this is what my belief system, my current belief system, is set at. And I have to make that choice to choose the truth over my limiting belief systems. And it's a daily choice. And I do that until that truth becomes my new operating system. Is it easy? Hell no, it's not. Is it worth it? 1,000% yes. Unequivocally yes. How do I know? Well, here I am, showing up again and recording this podcast instead of wallowing in silence because of believing a lie that says, what's the point? It's never going to work. Because I'm choosing to change my belief system and the way I think and to flip that narrative, I keep getting up again. I keep showing up. And I keep trying. And I want to encourage you today, wherever you find yourself, get up again. Keep showing up. Your life, your family, your dreams are worth the shot. They are worth you getting up again. You have a chance at winning. Just do the work. Put things in place that need to get into place. Keep preparing. Yes, you might stumble, you might fall, but it's not the end. You have a shot at this. Control the things that you can control. Some things we cannot control. But you can put in the effort, and your time will come, and things will fall into place. So don't give up. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this podcast has helped you, and I look forward to talking to you again next time.